Good morning or good afternoon, depending on where you are in the country, and welcome to today's webinar, 2014 Mobile Playbook. I am joined today by Kevin Smith, the director of our digital marketing group. Kevin, say hi to the nice people.
Good morning or afternoon.
And to get started today, I wanted to let everybody know if a member of your team or someone from your business cannot participate in this webinar live, it will be available for download later today at www.graggwebinars.com, and there will be an email sent out indicating when that will be available. So to get started, what we want to talk about today are kind of a litany of things, and we hope to cover everything. There is a lot to go through. Multi-screen branding definitely is at the front of this for a reason, followed closely by social media, click-to-call and texting, mobile TV and radio, apps, and some emerging trends and things that we're going to be following throughout the year. So to get started with multi-screen branding, wanted to just kind of dive in and talk about some of the facts. 90% of all media interaction daily is screen-based, whether that is your desktop, your television, your smartphone, your tablet, whatever that might be. And Kevin can dive in here whenever, but we're talking about smartphone usage. Half of the smartphones in the country are being used while people are watching television, and roughly spending almost 4.5 hours of leisure time. And those of you who may have children or a job probably know that leisure time is not necessarily something you are rich with. So the fact that we are spending almost all of our leisure hours in front of a screen on a daily basis is quite incredible.
And really the point here is the nuts and bolts, if you will, of the Mobile Playbook, and I'll give some backstory behind this before we get too involved in the process. Really what we're talking about today is we pulled out many of the highlights that are in the Gragg Mobile Playbook, which we published in February of this year. And the multi-screen world, I won't necessarily say branding, but the multi-screen world that we live in and consumers are immersed in is really the backbone of this. When we say mobile now, it's not so much that mobile is the only thing that brands should be doing, yet it is part of that digital ecosystem that we're always talking about, which is why as we get into this, you'll see how mobile plays into things like social and email and other things like that. It's not only just mobile marketing per se as much as it is mobile is part of the larger digital picture.
So one of the things that, when we look at how people are using different screens, what we want to do is see what they're using them for. What is the utility of each one of these? And what may be a little bit difficult to see on this screen, we see television represented in purple, tablets in blue, smartphone red, and PCs in orange. What you'll see across the board is that tablets pop up for every category listed as indexing higher for usage in terms of convenience, for content, connectivity, being able to use across different devices, fun, compatibility, and creativity. It scores well for every single one of those categories. And really smartphones. The only thing that smartphones actually aren't as popular for is content. But we'll get into that and how that may be a little bit skewed by the market as a total when most of us on this call and in general might be talking a little bit more about millennials and how we market to them.
And certainly the flip side of this is you see how much TV ranks in the less likely category. Obviously, if we think about the traditional television, now yes, we are, with the advent of things like smart TVs, you can do some of the things on the television that are applicable to tablets and smartphones, but certainly the penetration and the usage of the television for that particular thing is not what we're seeing. So again, from a traditional standpoint, TV has its place from what it truly has always been. So
So what we want to talk about are the different ways people use multiple screens throughout the day. One way is what we call sequential usage, and that is moving from one device to another at different times to accomplish a specific task. So the example that we have here, you know, and we've got the numbers on this as well, most of us are checking our email from a smartphone. So the example we have here is maybe you got the email about this particular webinar on your smartphone in the morning and then signed up for the webinar later that afternoon when you had the time. You saw that it was available, went to our website and signed up. So that is a sequential usage, and you know that happens more often than not. You know, your interest may be piqued by something. You know, we were discussing how you know, Kevin and his wife are shopping for a home right now, and you know they may look at different homes on the iPad, but then later, you know, fill out the forms necessary from their PC. And Kevin, you were talking a little bit more about this sequential usage yesterday, and in particular this graphic.
That's right. So, you know, one thing that we certainly see from how folks are moving from one device to another is really again, I don't want to keep using the phrase heart and soul, but really what the nuts and bolts of this mobile model really is. So if you think about, as Nick used the house hunting example, you think about planning a trip. There are certainly things that consumers will do on their smartphone or on their tablet that they will not do on the computer. So they can look at pictures of a vacation destination. They can read reviews of a hotel. And those are certainly things that they can do on the computer as well. But we know that if they're at their child's event or waiting in the doctor's office or certainly commuting on the train, they can do all those sorts of things. And it's not that they won't necessarily get their credit card out and actually book the trip on those devices, but the likelihood of them doing that and on the computer will certainly grow up or increase up through the use of the computer.
So, you know, in terms of sequential usage, smartphones, it is a good starting place for many of the activities. And I'm sorry, I just see the question down here from Shonda. I am sorry if I'm butchering your name. And yes, you can get a copy of these slides. They will be available later today. And if you want to email me directly, I will put my email address right here, and I can send you a copy of these slides.
And I will also say at the end of the presentation, we will have the link. Again, all of the content in this webinar today is really an overview of the actual mobile playbook, and you can download that in its entirety as well on our website.
Definitely. So when we talk about smartphones, yes, they are kind of the starting point. You know, when Kevin was talking about, you know, when we commute, when we are waiting for different things, that is actually, we do have a graph in here to showcase that our waiting time is often spent on our smartphones. You know, maybe it means that our attention spans are lacking and we're not able to focus, but my feeling is it kind of gives us something to do rather than a crossword puzzle, you know, in those scenarios. PCs, they're often for more complex activities. You know, you're, you know, booking a trip, you know, and getting all the financials taken care of for that, or you know, you're watching a video on it, you know, that may take up too much bandwidth wherever you might be. PC is a good place for that. And then tablets, and Kevin can get into this a little bit more, but tablets are fast becoming almost an entire replacement for PCs in that sense, because of their utility and the ability to do a little bit more on them based on screen size.
Absolutely. That's really, again, the main thing there is tablets are, especially as the newer versions come to market, where, you know, not just screen size, but pixel width and depth, screen resolution, that's the word I was looking for.
There you go.
Is very similar, not far off from what they would get on a traditional computer or certainly laptop. So and then of course as web properties themselves become more mobile friendly and responsive, which we're going to talk about later too in this presentation, but the experience, the user experience on a tablet in terms of web browsing specifically can be very similar to the user experience on a website. And then I'll let you.
Oh no, that's fine. Yeah, we wanted to move into simultaneous usage, and there's two different ways people use simultaneous. It's either related or unrelated activity. The example we have here for complementary usage, this may be where you are watching television and you see a commercial. Here we have an animal shelter here in Kansas City. You see the commercial. You are on your tablet at the same time. You may donate through your tablet. So you're performing a task that is very in congress with what you're doing on your other screen, your second screen, if you will. We talk about using it with television, social media usage with television on a smartphone is going to definitely be Twitter's realm. A lot of people, that's a big thing that people have keyed into in sporting events, for television shows even that are very popular, using hashtags throughout the episode or the event basically to commemorate it, Oscars and other ones. So, really using those two screens in tandem to, and then the other is multitasking. Maybe it's something completely unrelated, and we have, the example here is you may be playing Candy Crush on the tablet, and then checking out a friend's event invite on your smartphone simultaneously, but completely unrelated events.
From a marketing and advertising standpoint, of course, this is really what's exciting for us when we talk about complementary usage. So being able to have maybe even a 15-second TV spot, much more obviously than a 30. We're going to have a limited window, obviously 15 or 30 seconds, to tell a story, to get a brand out in front of someone, but certainly being able to drive them to whether it's a unique URL or your main website, where they then can go and do further research, maybe even have more video information because we know that they just saw a commercial. Now, does that mean that they're going to see another commercial? Probably not, but certainly inundate them as they're on their sphere of influence and going down their research mode of finding out more about the brand.
And you can see here, just some of the most performed or popular activities for simultaneous usage. Obviously, emailing, web surfing, and social networking, like we talked about. Twitter and eSurance was actually a great example of that. Really using hashtag to promote engagement after the Super Bowl. If many of you saw that. Interestingly enough, though, 78% of simultaneous usage is multitasking, so it is kind of unrelated events. You're watching television, you may be checking your social media profile simultaneously, not really in congress with what you're watching, just kind of mildly browsing for different things, or maybe even home shopping while the game's on.
And again, as we think about the sophistication of devices, specifically smartphones and tablets, the ease in which you can go about from doing all of those things, checking your email, checking your Facebook, and web browsing while you're still watching television or doing something else.
The interesting thing to us is that if you can really create, and often the recommendation is going to be less is more. The more simplistic that you can make the message across all of the different screens, TV, PC, smartphone, and tablet, your unaided recall it increases dramatically. And this example here, says, you mentioned you saw an advertisement for Volvo. What type of automobile was shown? And the amount of people that had witnessed that across 4 different screens really upped the ability for them to recall the entire ad and what was being showcased and what was being featured. So,
2 takeaways on this one too is, of course, if you think about the Monday after the Super Bowl water cooler talk, everyone's talking about the great commercials, and then they say, oh yeah, what was that brand? Who was that for when the dog jumped over the fence and into the neighbor's pool? You know, they
Exactly.
remember the content of the commercial but not the product. Secondly, even while it's a 17% increase for the the 4-screen that remember the actual 4-door sedan, you still have almost 60% that couldn't recall,
right.
Which I really think drives home the fact, again, of the importance of having a true digital ecosystem with multiple touch points and branding opportunities.
And that really begs us to look at responsive design. This is something that we've been touting for a while. It shouldn't really be anything that you don't know about at this point, but being able to make your site responsive. So no matter what screen it is that's being that your site is being viewed on, really needs to be optimized for that. And responsive design allows you to do that without having to remake anything for a different screen size. One of the biggest things to us is going to be email, because 3/4 of smartphone users are checking their email as their top activity on that device. Having responsive design in email is essential. We often think about it as the domain of websites only, or maybe even landing pages only. But really, we need to start looking at how we can make those things optimized for email as well.
And it's also important to remember, too, if you just think about your own daily usage, how many people are checking their email on their smartphone before they've even stepped foot in their office in the morning. So, and then, of course, continuing that habit throughout the day. So, which is why email still has high open rates and view rates, certainly across the board. So if you're not embracing your email campaign with responsiveness, you're missing out on the mark there.
So when we talk about social media, and this is a big point now, there are things, and we'll talk about it a little bit later, that are being done right now that may be countering this a little bit. But the data currency of the PC world is the cookie. It allows people to track user behaviors and different search histories, so you can really kind of create a little bit more of a profile of who you might be marketing to. With mobile devices, for many different reasons, but I'll say basically because we weren't sure exactly how to treat a mobile device, because it was a phone, so we were treating it like a phone line, and privacy laws contained therein, but it's also a content device, and it's also so many other things that we wanted to keep privacy laws intact, so cookies were not allowed within the mobile world. So having social platforms that have so many of these bits of information to digest from a personal level and can show kind of the lifestyle or interests of a particular user is very valuable. And I think we'll see a lot more marketing done from them, I guess, to big data. But looking at the fact that 2/3 really access social media from a mobile engaged device. Now, I think that number has probably climbed even since this report was done at the beginning of this year. I believe that number just will continue to grow because that's at 66%, but really you look at Facebook globally and it's 75% are accessing it through the mobile device. So an interesting note here, we found that LinkedIn mobile users 2.5 times as active as desktop-only users, and that was an interesting fact to us, that they're just a lot more engaged on that. And it really could be that the theory, I guess, is that it is more connected in a networking atmosphere. And Twitter is really estimating that 60% of their ad revenue is going to be from mobile advertising by this time next year.
And I think one thing that all of these networks have done a superb job on is the ability to have apps that are very utility-based as well. So the experience, again, through the mobile app is very similar to what they would get through their desktop or computer experience.
And these are, two of the big ones, Facebook and YouTube, just showing the amount of mobile traffic that has increased just in the last couple of years. But then looking at some of the social networks that are almost entirely accessed by a mobile device. Instagram and Pinterest make a lot of sense. Twitter is leading the pack there. Facebook we showed, and then Tumblr, and then LinkedIn still at 25% is not a bad percentage, and especially when you consider how active people are on that. And then something that we talked about a little bit in our What to Expect webinar earlier this year was the growth of Vine and Instagram video. Interesting about Vine and Instagram, if you don't currently have a strategy for that, we would encourage you to begin developing. You do not have to have one ready to go out of the box right now, but it would be in your best interest to start looking at these two options. They're very short videos. It's very hard, in my opinion, to craft a good marketing message into that short of a video, but it can be done. And the interesting thing is that branded vines, you see here, 4 times more likely to be seen than other branded video, including YouTube. So one note is just that the hour when most of these are posted is between 10 a.m. and 11 a.m. regardless of region. So that means whatever time zone you're in between 10 and 11 a.m. that's going to be the time that most of the people in that region are going to be posting vines, and my guess is seeing them. I don't know that data though. Another interesting note, and may or may not have some impact on you, is just that music seems to be a very popular thing within these, as 3 of the top 5 retweeted micro videos all time were containing music. And this one I really like too. Just the Instagram videos are more than a third more likely to be tweeted than Instagram photos. It's interesting that they just developed this maybe late 2013 Instagram video, and already it's a lot more shared than their mainstay product.
And I really think the takeaway here on this subject is really, again, the quickness of the evolution in video on the mobile side. And if we think about that early slide where we had the favorability factors for different devices, television was so negative for so many of them. Well, 4 years ago, a smartphone, or let me rephrase that, a mobile phone would have been negative in terms of video, right? Because it would take forever to load, it would be choppy, and all these other things. Well, as these programs and as the devices, again, become more sophisticated, the consumer is much more susceptible and willing to view video on their phone, which they would have not done 3 years ago. And you certainly see the brands and networks that have adopted that have had massive success.
So some of our strategies for success in a mobile social atmosphere really relate back to kind of the same principles that we would encourage for social media across platforms. So and we can get some more into that, but in essence of time, I will move on. Click to call. This is definitely something that and even this morning I was reviewing an SEM campaign for a customer, and looking through, seeing that there wasn't a click-to-call option in their SEM campaign. And to me, it's just wasted opportunity in that sense. 70% of mobile searchers use the click-to-call function. And when you think about the fact that mobile search is expected to overtake desktop search within this year, that becomes a very significant statistic to look at. What people are looking for, and this is why I would do this. People want to get quick answers from a real person, but this is a prime opportunity for you to be, either setting an appointment or closing a sale or doing whatever it is that is your key performance indicator. Because we all know we'd rather get a phone call than just a blind form lead. When almost half of the people use click-to-call to schedule an appointment, that says something significant to me when I look at that data. And even overall, just behaviorally, we see an 8% boost in click-through ratio when the click-to-call button is added.
If we think again about the using habits of someone that's doing a search on a smartphone the propensity for them to, if they see that call button, click to call. That's the easiest thing for them to do to get all the information that they need, rather than clicking on things that may not be mobilely optimized for them and that sort of thing. So
wonderful point. And the risk associated with not having it is something also to point out. You're 33% less likely to use a brand or a company, service, whatever it is, if you don't have a click-to-call option. And they're going to be looking for your competitors. That's the biggest takeaway to me, is you're really just losing opportunity to a competitor.
This certainly speaks to the amplification of negative versus positive, right? Certainly, we know negative amplification is far greater than positive. So
absolutely. So some of the strategies for success in click-to-call, obviously, is just to implement click-to-call buttons first and foremost within organic and paid search campaigns, and definitely on your company's website. And if you work with pay-per-inquiry vendors nationwide, really run this past them and let's see if they will adopt this for your campaigns. Most will. And then just integrate the call extensions into mobile search campaigns. So if you have people that want more specific information, you can get that. And then obviously, as we would always recommend, just analyze and constantly optimize.
And it's also important to note here, you mentioned the pay-per-inquiry vendors. If you're a small to medium-sized business that you don't feel like you have the resources to properly support, a call center, there's vendors out there that will be more than happy to field those calls for you and handle the entire call, or do a warm transfer situation where they're kind of qualifying and then only sending your folks the best qualified inquiries.
Absolutely. So when we talk about two-way texting, we were kind of laughing over this one. In 2000, average person sent 35 texts per month. Now, if any of you were texting back in 2000, you know exactly how difficult that was if you had the kind of phone I did at the time, where you had to press 3 times on your on each key to get the right letter you wanted. 2012, 1,245 texts per month average. 18 to 24-year-olds, 3,300. That number has probably jumped. Tell you what, I'm not even in that demographic, and I probably send more than that. But the best part to me, and again, when interruptive technology emerges, it is interruptive for sometimes a great long while. But as things progress, it's not always going to be this. So right now, 98% of text messages are read. That's the beauty of this. Where when we look at only 29% of tweets, and Twitter being the popularity contest that it is, and emails we only read 10 to 12% of, this becomes a very significant number. And down even to Facebook posts at 12%. So those are staggering statistics. This one I really like. If you are in the education realm, students wish instructors communicated more using this is just the last time that EDUCAUSE did this survey was in 2012. I'm imagining the number actually became greater than this. You can see email at 45%, and text messaging came in just behind email, and really only 10 percentage points behind face-to-face communication with an instructor. And my guess is text messaging probably jumped above email within the last year. I just don't have the data to support that, but it would, to me, make a lot more sense. So what we would recommend is not necessarily that you have a team full of people on their smartphones typing away, and of course that does open you up to some TCPA violations and things like that. What you want is a little bit more controlled environment. What we're showing on screen here, this is a product that we offer. There may be others, but this is one that we've implemented and developed here in-house that gives you the ability to basically text message and interaction straight from your PC. So you can do that while you're at work, at your desk, and it can be a lot more monitored environment than, simply having a cell phone that you're texting back and forth on.
And I think it's worth mentioning here, too, to your initial point, with the two-way texting, you're going beyond the text yes or, text this short code. You're actually engaging in people on their phone in a one-to-one relationship, answering their questions. And with this particular interface, you can have, whether it's admission reps, a financial aid counselor, whoever it may be, could be interfacing with more than one person, multiple people at the same time, just through their desktop, but yet the end user sees it as a text message.
And the cool thing about that is, when you look at it from an application standpoint, it really isn't any different than web chat if you have that feature on your website. This just has a higher propensity to be read by a larger amount of people simultaneously. So strategies for success here: just implement a targeted text blast for faster inquiry. Use a CRM to manage that info when you get it. Set appointments from text message. It really can be done just that easily. And follow-ups, and then integrate short codes into your offline media channels for people to be able to text you without having to remember a 10-digit phone number. And then just track whatever key performance indicators you have. Track those from your text, so you can use enhanced metrics when you are making your decisions internally. Going into mobile radio, this one was great, and I don't know how many people use this particular service. This is the one I use on my phone, but in 2010, just 4 years ago, 88% of Pandora's listening came from desktop. 2012, 70% was on mobile devices, and that number has probably grown past that 88%. So it's basically done, a complete flop within the last 4 years, almost entirely on mobile. And when you see the numbers here, Pandora obviously owns the highest market share. Just iTunes Radio actually, interestingly enough, was not really something that iTunes was that interested in to begin with, but now they've taken over the number 3 spot from Spotify here within, I think, the last couple of months. Which actually I use Spotify on my desktop here, but not on my phone. But it was just interesting to see, how fast they're growing and could definitely become a major player in that market. So the 15-second ads that are available on mobile, and we've seen great results using specifically Pandora here, you can't skip them. You can target them very highly to the demographic, the location. You can even look at music genres if you see that a large number of your customers or your students are really into country music. It might be a great idea to start generating some leads from there. And then what we like about it is that while somebody may be checking out the band on their phone, they click the ad, they can actually see a video, and that really engages people a lot heavier than other formats through online. We look at mobile television. Really cool info is that millennials do watch the majority of their videos on their smartphone. That's really the way to get through to a millennial, is through their smartphone. They've adopted tablets, just not in as great a number. And I think my theory on most of this is that the mobility factor of a smartphone really is the mainstay. They are not yet people who have necessarily settled down, so they don't have as much downtime at home with the iPad as their older counterparts.
And I think, too, worth noting, the numbers are staggering on the millennial side in terms of how many use their smartphone as their primary device.
Absolutely.
So they may not even have a computer at home, or if they do, to your point, they might only be on that computer, a couple times a week because they're on their computer at work, and then they're using their smartphone to accomplish everything that they need to do.
The number here, and interestingly enough, this is actually across the market. 82% of tablet and 64% of smartphone TV is used in the home. When you look at millennials, the number of TV watched on a smartphone, 98% is done at home. 54% is actually at a friend's home, so they're sharing the video content more often than not, and they may be, watching clips on Hulu. If it's Jimmy Fallon or whomever, they're showing their friend a clip. Well, those come served with ads, which is a great way to get in front of them and really get them to trust your brand as we have it in quotes here, with it, or modern. They have a lot more positive feelings associated with your brand.
And again, I think this tells the story of the shift in viewing habits. So they're doing this in a home that more than likely has one, if not multiple televisions in it, but yet they're still choosing to view these videos and shows on a tablet or phone.
And you can see here, almost a third more likely to recall your brand unaided, completely unaided, if you have presented them with a mobile ad. So we look at mobile TV and radio. We want to integrate mobile TV and radio into your campaigns if they aren't already, and understand how your users are experiencing that and using that. Again, CRM, can't stress that enough. You do want to see and gather the information from these inquiries so you can start building a profile or a demographic out of it. And obviously we feel like in 2015 there's going to be a large shift of people and it's not going to necessarily be a separate budget, but it's going to be a very large portion of the entire media budget. So moving into apps. And Kevin and I were talking about this yesterday, and Kevin was recently at a conference where they outlined the usage of apps and some kind of fun.
Yeah, then it's kind of staggering of the actual market share from the number of apps that are downloaded and opened once is 80%, roughly. The number of apps that are downloaded and opened twice is about 10%. So then you can figure out the number of apps that are downloaded and used more than 3 times somewhat on a regular basis is under 10%. And if you really think about your own device, again, in app usage, your social media apps, your Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn, depending on which one you're active on. If you're a sports fan, your sports ones. If you're a cooking fan or what, there's probably only 5 or 6 apps that you're using on a regular basis, but you probably have 30 apps still or more, even on your phone.
Oh, absolutely.
So the point here is not that apps aren't good, because the interesting thing about this stat is, there's still a lot of time spent on apps, but how much of that time is clustered in 1 or 2 or 3 apps at a time. So really it's about creating an app that is going to get continual usage and giving people that utility value in doing something with it.
So when we talk about engagement, and to Kevin's point, that is really the mainstay of the apps that get used over and over and over again, is that they are engaging. So when we look at it from an educator's perspective or a school's perspective, one of the key measures of your success is going to be completions, right? And just seeing a trend of those going down. Many have speculated that it is due to poor engagement. Some have used social media to benefit on-campus visits, applications, and enrollments. All wonderful things and good, very, very high numbers. And it is great for prospective students, upcoming events, application, academic advisors, financial aid, necessary courses for degree. Wonderful opportunities there, and ones that we've seen and have empirical data to support doing quite well. We also think it would be great for graduates, looking at alumni events coming up, the ability to donate through your app, really stay connected with the place where you completed your degree or your certificate or wherever. But we really feel like many may be missing the boat on current students. And a way to engage not only current students but current faculty. Things like class registration and being able to send push notifications for class cancellations, for events coming up at the school, for any number of things that you can keep that student engaged with, because they do want to be notified about a lot of different things, and their instructors can notify them through their app, or they can push out different notifications to them throughout the day, and then just a place where you can go to have a centralized hub of information, like a campus directory or maps to different locations.
And really, they think here is too not just the retention, but it's operational efficiencies, right? So how much of the time of your staff is being done sort of fulfilling these, mundane, or they're certainly important tasks, but things that certainly individuals could be doing themselves if they had the right tools in front of them. So creating something like this, it may not certainly increase your inquiry flow, but if it increases your retention and completion rate, then certainly there's value there.
So tips for success here, just consider whether or not, and we really feel strongly that it is a great tool for schools to use, and then integrate it into your branding budget. It isn't necessarily a direct marketing function, but it is definitely a way to engage people to your brand. And then make it available to all device platforms. Don't just make one for iPhone. The millennials are actually moving more toward the Samsung products anyway. And then obviously just enable the users to remain engaged by making it easy to go through. You don't want to make anything too complicated. Simplicity is a virtue in that arena. And well, it should go without saying, but a free download. So some things that we are going to be watching over the next year, and when we say mobile as a priority, what we're really talking about is that when we say mobile should be part of your budget, the amount of devices that we are going to own from a mobile perspective is not going to decrease. We are not going to be replacing things. You've seen things like the Samsung Watch and Google Glass, wearables, basically. Those are going to be additions. They will not replace a smartphone. They will not replace a tablet. These are going to be in addition to. So we're going to need to start looking at different ways that we can, start using the different mobile devices in Congress together, so we can create a seamless brand experience.
And from a user perspective, that Absolutely. Symbiotic relationship of all these devices will be connected. They will know that John Smith is the same John Smith that was on the tablet, on the phone, with the glass, and with the watch.
Ad models, we do expect that to change. We've got a kind of a chart here showing by day part the different uses of the smartphone. So, when we talked about waiting earlier, it's a prime time for smartphone usage. People generally check social media before they leave the house in the morning, just to see if anybody's posted anything interesting before the day starts. And it is, just a way for us to connect, first and foremost, before we get out. And then, obviously, the TV high time is later in the day. And so most of us, though, are using our mobile devices while we are in front of that screen as well. So we also see the buying and selling evolution of real-time bidding. 2013, we saw about 30% in mobile. We anticipate that to grow by 50% in the next year to 45%. So that's another one that we'll be watching. Now, when we talked about cookies earlier, there are new device IDs for iOS and Android that can be leveraged to mimic some of the characteristics of cookies. So it's essentially being able to track behavioral patterns across the different devices and that people are using. And then being able to be hyperlocation based. This is great if you have somebody if you have somebody maybe driving by your campus location. And they may drive by every single day, and they may have expressed interest before. Well, being able to send a push notification through Facebook might not be a bad thing. And And then, and I'll let Kevin elaborate on this, we are going to start seeing a lot more unrecognizable ad formats, things that we haven't even concepted.
Right, and this really speaks to the shakeup that you had mentioned earlier with the text messages being read. We see traditional banner ads have less and less success because the user has just gotten so ingrained and used to seeing them. So as these new mobile channels expand, they may not recognize it as per se traditional advertisement, but yet still be prone then to act on what the goal is there.
I see from Dan down here, we are doing an increasing amount of outdoor advertising and events. We're currently using QR codes for quick mobile connection, but I've heard that clickable paper and other formats are coming out. And what info do we have about that for best results? And Kevin, I'll let you expand on that because that's actually something that we're doing right now.
Yeah, so we similarly have had a shift in this front as well with what we're calling immersion, digital immersion technology, where from a mechanical standpoint, it's very similar to a QR code in that they would hover their phone over a printed material or really anything that could be scanned through the phone, and then it can be a video, it could be more material, it really could be anything. But what this is showing really, I think, is that QR codes in their nature maybe we're a little too early from an adoption standpoint, and the people that were using it and engaging with the QR code were not finding a really true mobile user experience on the back side of it, where certainly this technology, if done properly, allows a true good mobile experience. And again, if we think about all the multi-screens, if it's video, whatever the driving product, the end result from a user perspective is once the scan is completed, as long as that's optimized for them, that's really at the end of the day the goal here. Because again, if you think about anything in the digital space, really, if they click on something and they don't get what they're expecting to see, you've won that click battle, but you've probably lost them as an inquiry or customer. So now if they scan something and they get an experience that they're truly enjoyed and pleased with, then you have not lost them. So,
thanks, Dan. That was a great question, and I hope we were able to answer it for you. At this point, we would like to open the phone line up if anybody has any questions for us over that.
Absolutely. Ladies and gentlemen, the floor is now open for questions. If you do have a question, please press *1 on your telephone keypad at this time. If you're using a speakerphone, we ask that while posing your question, you pick up your handset to provide favorable sound quality. If at any time your question has been answered, you can remove yourself from the queue by pressing 1. Again, ladies and gentlemen, if you do have a question or comment, please press *1 on your telephone keypad at this time. Please hold as we poll for questions.
Absolutely, yeah. Dan, if you'd like to reach out to me, we can hop on a call. And one thing to note is that by no means do we feel like we were able to cover everything in the mobile realm today. If you ever have 10 hours to spare, we can definitely engage you for that period of time. Dan, we do have a question do you have any recommended providers of student apps?
Yeah, Gragg Advertising. We'd be happy to talk to you about what we can provide you on the student app application. That's something I'm sure if you and Nick want to set something up down the road. So
absolutely, yeah. Dan, if you'd like to reach out to me, we can hop on a call and kind of discuss some of the options on that. But we actually do that ourselves here now. So happy to talk to you about it.
And Nick, there appear to be no phone questions at this time.
Wonderful. Okay, well, what I would encourage you to do in the meantime, if you would like to continue the conversation, feel free to check us out on Facebook and like our page. You, I guess, can probably also like my page. That's my son down there on the picture. And feel free to follow us on Twitter at GoWithGragg. And I want to thank everybody for your time today. Again, if you do have any questions, please do not hesitate. You can call me, you can email me, any questions you might have. The webinar from today will be available later today at graggwebinars.com for download. If anybody couldn't make it today, or if you'd just like to have some of the information definitely. But again, I want to thank everybody for their time and questions today, and wish everybody a wonderful weekend.
And I will just add in closing too, thank you again for your time, but also again, remember, we're seeing the comments that this was very informative, which is obviously great to hear. But certainly this was really a very high-level overview of all of the content in the Mobile Playbook. We certainly tried to touch on all of the sections, but there certainly is much more content in there. So if you felt this was informative, I would suspect you would find reading the entirety of the Mobile Playbook as equally informative. So,
wonderful.
Thank you all.
Thanks. Good morning.